Insight Global LLC, Natalie Rhodes, Zachary Bogosian versus Devontae Jordan Dwyer.
Your Honor, Jared Slade of Alston and Bird for plaintiffs, Insight Global, Natalie Rose, and Zach Bogosian. It might be easier for me to introduce the individuals on my side. I am joined by counsel Sydney Webb at Alston and Bird. Insight Global's corporate representative for the hearing is Megan Quinn, in-house counsel. Plaintiff Natalie Rhodes is here. Plaintiff Zach Bogosian is here. And additional fact witness Greg Dowling of Insight Global is here. As you'll probably note, Your Honor, Ms. Rhodes, Mr. Bogosian, and Mr. Dowling all signed verifications in support of the petition.
All right. Ms. Webb, you?
Yes, Your Honor. Sydney Webb, Plaintiff's Counsel.
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, I apologize, Your Honor.
No, that's all right. Go ahead.
I have two brief administrative items. First, for efficiency, would the court admit the exhibits that plaintiffs provided to Mr. Dwyer and the court via box and by email? Those are plaintiffs exhibits A through Q, because that would help sort of expedite some of the testimony.
Any objections to those exhibits, Ms. Webb?
I'm sorry, Your Honor. Ms. Webb is counsel with me.
Oh, okay.
I believe Mr. Dwyer is proceeding pro se.
I'm sorry. Didn't realize that. Mr. Dwyer, any objection to exhibits A through Q?
No.
A through Q are admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. I had one more brief administrative item. Some of those exhibits and some of the truthful testimony that would be elicited would include some colorful or off-color language. Would the court prefer that the witnesses attempt to censor?
No, just say
okay.
What you say. We'll figure it out later.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that, Your Honor.
There's not a jury in the room, and I've heard worse, I'm sure, or at least
I am confident, but I thought I would ask, so I appreciate that, Your Honor.
Fine. No problem.
Before we get into testimony, would you like any sort of argument or overview?
Sure. I mean, it's up to you. It's your call. You're running the show.
Okay.
Right?
Thank you so much, Your Honor. Again, Jared Slade, outside counsel for Insight Global. We are here on a verified petition, but specifically today, an application for a temporary injunction. Mainly, plaintiffs want defendant Devontae Dwyer to stop. He has exhibited a pattern of harassing behavior that has left various employees of Insight Global terrified. As set forth in the petition, each of the plaintiffs has its own claim against Mr. Dwyer. Their claims for trespass, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and stalking under Texas Civil Practice and Remedies Code, Chapter 85, as well as invasion of privacy by intrusion. I'll sum up at the end after receiving the testimony to match everything up. But just so we're all on the same page, the question before the court here today is whether to take the temporary restraining order relief that had been previously secured and granted by this court and extend it through a period of trial. Plaintiffs believe that is more than appropriate given not only Mr. Dwyer's past behavior, but as it will come out today, his violations of this court's temporary restraining order, as demonstrated by additional communications he's attempted to have with Ms. Rhodes, as reflected by her wireless service records. All that plaintiffs have to demonstrate to justify the temporary injunction we seek here today are three things: a cause of action against the defendant, a probable right to the relief sought, and a probable, imminent, and irreparable injury in the interim. As the court knows from the verified petition, defendant has exhibited harassing behavior over a period of time, despite knowing that individuals didn't want to communicate with him, by blocking him, by not reaching out to him or communicating with him or responding to any text messages he sent them. He has continued to harass them and communicate with them, including but not limited to sending flowers to Ms. Rhodes at her place of work, including but not limited to showing up late in the evening at Mr. Bogosian's house uninvited and banging on the door to get in, and including but not limited to trying multiple times to get up to Insight Global's floor this month. I will stop there in terms of argument. And I would like to call our first witness,
Well,
Miss Natalie
one
Rhodes.
second.
Please.
1 second. That's your opening. I just need to check with Mr. Dwyer. Is there something that you like to say as opening, Mr. Dwyer? You're not required to, I'm just asking.
No, if you want to be honest, everything that Mr. Slade said is absolute fact.
Okay,
We could proceed from there.
all right. Ms. Rhodes? I mean, Mr. Slade?
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Rhodes, would you mind taking yourself off mute, please? Where do you work with Ms. Rhodes?
I work at Insight Global.
What is Insight Global?
We are a staffing and consulting firm.
And what do you do for Insight Global?
I am an account manager, so I manage the relationship with our clients.
Do you know the defendant?
Yes,
When did you first meet Mr. Dwyer?
I met him
Approximately.
in the summer of 2019 when I began working at Insight Global
How did you meet him then?
as coworkers in the office.
He no longer works for Insight Global, is that right?
That's correct.
During the time he was with Insight Global, how would you describe your interactions with Mr. Dwyer?
I would say we were coworkers and then became friends outside the office as well.
So you hung out with him outside the office.
Yes,
Did you ever have any romantic relationship with Mr. Dwyer?
no,
When did Mr. Dwyer, to your recollection, leave Insight Global?
in September of 2021.
Do you remember, or do you have an understanding as to why he left Insight Global in September of 2021?
Yes.
What is that understanding based on?
Based on information I was told from another coworker who was involved in an interaction with him outside of work.
What was that interaction outside of work that resulted in Mr. Dwyer's termination?
From my understanding, there was a night where a group of coworkers went out. He being Devontae and our other coworker ended up back at his place. He offered for her to stay at his place on the couch. She accepted and then woke up in the morning in his bed to him on top of her and was kind of frazzled, trying to fight him off and was asking what happened and how she got there. And it's my understanding that he told her that he moved her there in the middle of the night. She then left his apartment. And I think that he may have sent her a few messages later that day or later that weekend about the interaction. And she basically reported it to our boss in HR. And I believe that led to his termination.
Thank you. After he was terminated from Insight Global, did you maintain a regular friendship like you had before?
No.
When, to your recollection, was the next time after his termination in September 2021 that you heard from Mr. Dwyer?
The next time that I heard from him was in December of 2021. He had texted Zach and I in a group message just congratulating us on hitting our contest at work.
After that group text, when's the next time you recall interacting with him?
I ran into him in February of 2022 at a bar in Austin on a Saturday.
How was that interaction?
It was fine. He approached me and I turned around and we both said, "Hi, how are you? Good to see you." And then he walked off. That's really all it was.
Then when was the next time you recall having any sort of communication from Mr. Dwyer?
The next time that I heard from him was in October of 2022.
And how did he reach out in October of 2022?
He texted me.
Your Honor, Exhibit H for plaintiffs is something I'd like to put up on the screen. I see there doesn't appear to be a share function. I'm not sure if that's a request for the reporter to, or partly your assistant to put up.
Okay.
Okay. Apologies for that. Miss Rhodes, this is Plaintiff's Exhibit H, which has been admitted. What is this?
This is the screenshot of the text message that I received last October.
And Devante IG, you understood to be the defendant?
Yes.
And it looks like it just kind of continued prior chain you might have had with him.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, Ms. Rhodes, just for the sake of
Yes.
the court reporter, would you mind? Thank you so
Yes.
much. What struck you about this message when you received it?
I was very confused why he would be reaching out to me out of the blue. And then just opening it, it obviously makes no sense. So I thought the content of the message was very odd.
Had you heard at this point of other colleagues receiving messages from Mr. Dwyer?
I honestly can't remember if I had heard anything at this point, but this prompted me to reach out to Zach, which is where I remember really learning about the messages that he had been receiving the months leading up to this one I got.
And I know we'll hear from Mr. Bogosian shortly, but after communicating with Zach and hearing things, what did you decide to do as a result of receiving this message?
Block him immediately and report it to our boss as well as our HR department.
After learning about the communications Mr. Dwyer had been having with Mr. Bogosian, did that offer any additional context for how you received getting this message out of the blue?
I kind of feel like I still don't have context on where all this is coming from. So I think knowing what all Zach had received on top of what I received definitely made me think that we need to report it, but I don't feel like I have context.
Did he stop trying to contact you after you blocked him on text?
No.
How do you recall he reached out next?
Next was via email. I got something sent to my work email from his work email.
I'm going to go ahead and show what has been pre-admitted as Plaintiff's Exhibit I. Ms. Rhodes, what is this?
This is the screenshot of the email that he sent me.
Did it strike you then that he obviously indicated he realized you had blocked him?
Yes.
And nonetheless, he had followed up.
Yes.
Did you report this up the chain as well?
Yes.
Are you aware that Insight Global sent a cease and desist letter to Mr. Dwyer after this?
Yes.
That cease and desist letter was attached to the petition as Exhibit A. Had you known that that letter was going to be sent to Mr. Dwyer prior to it going?
No, I didn't.
That letter included your name, didn't it?
Yes.
Were you glad that it included your name?
No.
Why not?
I just wanted all this to stop. And after learning that that had been sent and pointed me out specifically, I was wondering if it was going to create more attention on me.
And that would be an intention you didn't want.
Correct.
I'm going to stop screen sharing that exhibit. Has the defendant, Mr. Dwyer, tried to contact you via any other channels?
Yes.
Like what?
LinkedIn, Venmo, and following on Instagram off the top of my head.
Has he tried to follow you on any other platforms?
Spotify is the only one I've noticed.
What is Venmo?
Venmo is an app to pay people to exchange money.
You can just message someone on that, or do you have to send them money?
You have to send money to send a message.
Do you recall any of the messages Mr. Dwyer sent you on Venmo?
There was two. The one that stood out in my mind was, I think he sent me 10 cents and wrote a dime for a dime.
And just to be perfectly clear, you have never responded to his email, texts, LinkedIn messages, or Venmo outreach.
No, immediate response has been blocking on everything.
I want to hop back to the cease and desist letter that was sent in October of 2022. Have you been able to determine if Mr. Dwyer kept text messaging you after you blocked him?
Yes,
How?
I went on to AT&T and can click by month to see all of the text messages that I have received, including from block numbers. So,
And just to be clear, so you can see that a message was sent, but you just can't see the actual content of the message?
correct, just the number it's coming from and the timestamp.
I'm going to go ahead and share what has been pre-admitted as Plaintiff's Exhibit N. Ms. Rhodes, can you describe what this is?
These are the text messages that I received in October to, I guess, beginning of November of 2022.
Sorry, I'm going to zoom in. And the number that's listed in the contact column, that is the number you understand to belong to the defendant, Mr. Dwyer?
Yes,
And the date, October 22nd, 2022, that's the same date as the cease and desist letter that was sent from Insight Global to Mr. Dwyer. Is that your understanding?
to be honest, I'm not sure what the date was on the letter. I know it was in the fall of 2022.
I'm going to briefly refresh your recollection by hopping over to, excuse me, it was October 25th. I apologize. So there were the two text messages on the 22nd, but then after receiving the cease and desist letter, see another 8 messages just in that October 2022 timeframe. Is that right, Ms. Rhodes?
Yes,
And then you did the same thing for November of 2022, right? To export the data for the text messages from Mr. Dwyer?
I apologize. You froze. Can you repeat that?
Of course. And you did the same drill for November of 2022. Is that correct?
Correct.
I'm going to flip us over to Plaintiff's Exhibit O, which has been pre-admitted. What is this document?
This is most of November of 2022.
I need to get off for just a second. If you guys would just give me a minute.
Of course, Your Honor.
I'll be right back. Thanks.
I believe we had just been establishing that this is the export of your text message records for November of 2022 in terms of calls from the number associated with Mr. Dwyer. Is that correct?
Text messages, but yes.
AT&T's wireless records didn't reflect calls from block numbers. Is that right? To your knowledge?
It's my understanding, yes.
Thank you. Let's keep talking about the text messages. I don't want us to go through literally each and every one's worth, but you've observed those records. How often, let me ask this, has the text messages from Mr. Dwyer continued since November 2022?
Yes.
Between December of 2022 and September of 2023, how often would you say, based on your observations of those records, did you receive a text message from this number?
Typically every other night, everywhere from 2 to 15 messages.
And have any of them actually broken through and been received by you?
One did, yes.
We'll get to that in a little bit. So after the cease and desist letter in October of 2022 and you blocking him, when was the next time you recall hearing anything from Mr. Dwyer?
The next time I got any sort of communication from him was whenever he mailed flowers to our office for me on Valentine's Day in 2023.
Did you take a picture of those flowers?
Yes.
I am going to share my screen with what has been pre-admitted as Plaintiff's Exhibit L. What is this?
This is the picture of the flowers and the note that I received.
Would you mind reading what the note says?
Well, here you go.
Is it signed by Mr. Dwyer?
No.
Can you walk the court through how you felt when you learned you were getting flowers at work on Valentine's Day, up through your realization as to who the sender was?
First, I was excited. My mom always sends me something on Valentine's Day. I honestly thought they were from her. I started unpacking them and was looking for a note from her and saw this. Obviously, my mom wouldn't write this cryptic note. And it immediately reminded me of the messages that I've received from him. So I immediately thought that they had to be from him, but obviously the note wasn't signed.
So you say they're from him. How would you ascertain that?
We actually called the flower shop, got someone on the phone, and begged them to tell who they were from until they confirmed that someone named Devontae Dwyer sent them.
How was it receiving something from Mr. Dwyer at work?
Very creepy.
Why?
Several reasons. I've made it very clear that I want nothing to do with him and don't want to hear from him, and Insight Global has as well. So I think the combination of him sending something not only to me, but also to this company that has been so clear that we don't want anything to do with him was just not a good feeling.
Did you reach out to him after this to tell him, I don't know what you're doing, stop?
No.
When was the next time you had any contact with Mr. Dwyer?
The next time was in March of 2023
Where was that?
at a golf tournament that I was attending for work with my clients.
And how did you learn that Mr. Dwyer was there as well?
I saw him.
After you saw him, what'd you do?
I called my boss and Zach to tell them that he was also there. And we basically just decided we'd keep an eye on him and keep our distance as best as we can to remain professional with our clients we were there with.
Did you eventually interact with him at that tournament? Can you tell us about that?
Yes. I was standing there having a conversation with one of my clients that I brought there when Devontae came up to me kind of on my side and gave me a hug from the side and said, "Oh, are you just not going to come say hi to me?" And my body language was very standoffish, and I backed away and said, "Oh, I didn't see you." And that was pretty much the interaction. And he was like, "Okay," and kind of laughed and walked off. And so, that was the gist of the interaction. And then there was a very awkward silence between me and my client because he watched this extremely weird interaction take place.
Then what happened?
Then I felt the need to tell my client what happened, to just kind of explain some context. So I gave him a little backstory, and he just said, "I'm so sorry. That's so weird that just happened." And I just kept my distance as best as I could the rest of the day.
Are you and Mr. Dwyer about the same height and size?
No.
About how tall are you?
I'm about 5'6".
About how tall would you estimate he is?
Maybe 6'3", 6'4".
After this experience at the golf tournament, did you have the opportunity to engage with anyone who worked with Mr. Dwyer at the time?
Yes.
What did you hear from that communication?
I heard that Devontae had been telling him and maybe some other coworkers that we were in a relationship. I was his girlfriend. I think the story that day was that we were on a break at the time. And I was told that a photo of me was his lock screen on his phone.
How did that make you feel?
Very creeped out.
Earlier, you indicated that there was a time where a message broke through.
Yes.
What, as best, how did that transpire to your knowledge?
So my phone broke in, I guess, end of March, beginning of April of 2023. And while I had it at the store getting it fixed, I transferred over my data to a phone that a friend of mine was allowing me to use. And I guess I learned that day that when you transfer your data, contacts that were blocked on one phone do not remain blocked. So his contact came unblocked and a few of his messages came through to me.
I'm going to screen share what's been pre-emitted as Plaintiff's Exhibit M. Ms. Rhodes, what is this?
That's the screenshot of the messages I received on the other phone that I was using.
And that's the phone number that we previously were looking at that's associated with Mr. Dwyer.
Yes.
Can you help me understand the third kind of message in this chain? Oh shit, do I get to annoy you all the time now? What did that mean to you?
What I inferred from these messages was that he sent the first two, noticed that they went through as iMessage rather than text message. And it's my best guess that the third and fourth messages are kind of in response to that realization.
When you saw he had messaged you, you're definitely stuck with me for the rest of your fucking life.
Oh my God.
What'd that mean to you?
I was horrified.
Why?
I think that's a fear that I've had, and seeing him write that to me just double down on the fear that's in the back of my mind.
And how about the final message? Yeah, you fucked up. I'll be back.
Same thing.
Were you concerned that
Oh my God.
he was saying you fucked up because of blocking him all this time?
I do not understand what he's trying to say, honestly, overall, with any of his messaging. Your guess is as good as mine, what he means by this.
I'd be more than happy to explain what I mean by that.
Mr. Devontae, you are going to get an opportunity to ask the question of the witness, or if you just want to talk, we'll get to that. But right now, this direct examination has to continue unless you have some objection to the question or something of that nature. Otherwise, those comments can be dealt with, your comments or your thoughts can be dealt with later on. Happens. we're just trying to get through this witness here. So go right ahead. Mr.
Thank you, Your
Vice
Honor. Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Rhodes, have these messages and Mr. Dwyer's behavior disturbed you enough to go to the police?
Yes.
How many police reports would you estimate you've made about Mr. Dwyer and his behavior?
2 or 3.
As a result of these outreaches, have you taken other steps to try to protect yourself?
Yes.
Have you talked to building security?
Yes.
What did you tell them?
I gave them as much backstory as I could. Essentially, a disgruntled employee has been harassing me and some other employees, and his behavior has become alarming.
You were reluctant to be a named plaintiff in this action, right?
Correct.
Why?
Again, I think just going back to what I was saying earlier about the cease and desist, I didn't really want my name directly to be, I guess, out there and potential more unwanted attention to be put on me.
But you decided to because you hoped this might actually make him stop.
Correct.
You're aware that after we filed this petition, the court entered a temporary restraining order, right?
Yes.
And your understanding was that Mr. Dwyer was supposed to not even attempt to contact you again after that, right?
Yes.
I want to briefly show you, just for timestamp purposes, what's been pre-minted as, and again, only showing this in terms of time. Do you see what time that says?
Yes.
So that's October 9th, 2023 at 1:54 p.m. Have you checked your AT&T wireless records to see if Mr. Dwyer has attempted to contact you after this TRO was entered and communicated to him?
Yes.
I am going to jump us over to what's been pre-admitted as Plaintiff's Exhibit P. Can you describe what this document reflects, Ms. Rhodes?
These are the text messages from a few days in October of this year.
It looks like it covers approximately October 2nd, October 11th.
Yes.
I want to focus this in on the ones that start on October 9th. Can you see what time that reflects, or should I zoom in a little bit?
That's 2:09 p.m.
So approximately 15 minutes after I had emailed him notice that he wasn't supposed to contact you, you receive a bunch of text messages from him. Did you also pull information reflecting text messages from Mr. Dwyer since October 12th?
Yes.
I'm going to flip us over to Plaintiff's Pre-admitted Exhibit Q. This just shows all of the respective text messages in and out from, it appears to be October 11th, all the way up through Wednesday, I believe. It appeared that there had been about 80 from Mr. Dwyer. Does that sound about right?
Yes.
Mr. Dwyer's here for us. I want to give you a chance if you'd like to take it.
Yes, I would
Say
love
something
to.
to him.
Hold on a second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Are you through talking to this witness?
I had one last question, Your Honor, which was, Ms. Rhodes, here's an opportunity where you can communicate to Devontae what you want and what you don't want. What would you like to say?
I think I've made it abundantly clear that I have no interest in communicating or seeing him ever again. And if it hasn't been clear already, I hope that us taking legal action to stop you from communicating with us is going to make it clear to you. That's all I'd like to say.
Thank you, Ms. Rhodes. Your Honor, I pass the witness.
Mr. Dwyer, any questions of the witness?
No.
All right. Mr. Slade, you can call your next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to call Zach Bogosian. Where do you work?
Insight Global,
How long have you worked at Insight Global?
5.5 years.
What do you do for Insight Global?
I manage a team of salespeople and recruiters.
When did you first meet the defendant, Devontae Dwyer?
Back end of summer of 2019.
How would you describe your interactions with Mr. Dwyer at that point?
Friendly.
Were you friends outside of work?
Yes.
How would you describe your relationship with Mr. Dwyer?
We were coworkers, and we became friends. We would hang out outside of work. I was in an elevated role when he started, so I was invested in his development and looked at it as like an ability for me to help mentor him and help get him promoted, and also, just guide him.
Your hangouts out of work, did he ever come over to your house?
Yes.
Do you recall approximately when Mr. Dwyer left Insight Global?
Yes.
Approximately when was that?
I believe fall of 2021.
After he left Insight Global, did that change your relationship with him?
Yes.
How so?
We didn't talk.
When, after he left Insight Global, was the next time you recall hearing from him?
I believe month in between, a month to 2 months later.
What do you recall from that outreach?
Him apologizing for what happened, but then also wanting to kind of explain his side of the story.
Were you ready for that conversation?
No.
Did you communicate that you weren't ready for that conversation?
Yes.
Did you leave the door open so that he thought maybe later you might be ready to have that conversation?
Yes.
When was the next time after that you recall sort of hearing from him?
We tentatively talked about getting lunch.
Did that lunch come to pass?
It never happened.
When was the next time you recall hearing from him?
Next time I recall was spring/summer of 2022.
What do you recall from that communication from Mr. Gordon?
I was in San Diego with my wife on a vacation, and I got a text from Devontae that was very different from the prior text that I had received from him and communication I had with him after his termination.
How so?
It's very sporadic, kind of all over the place. Wasn't the Devontae I knew. Really unsettling.
What did you decide to do as a result?
I decided to block him.
Did he take the hint and stop contacting you?
No.
Did you tell anybody else besides your wife about the messages from Mr. Dwyer that didn't seem like Mr. Dwyer to you?
Told my boss and then our HR and legal.
At some point, did you also communicate information about that to Ms. Rhodes?
Yes.
Why did you choose to communicate that with Ms. Rhodes?
Because she had a similar experience.
How did Ms. Rhodes seem to you as a result of that experience?
Terrified.
After you blocked him on text, did Mr. Dwyer try to contact you via other means?
Yes.
Like what?
Instagram and LinkedIn.
I am going to share my screen with what's been pre-admitted as Plaintiff's Exhibit G. You recognize this document, Mr. Bogosian?
Yes.
What is it?
Devontae's LinkedIn message to me.
Did a panda have any particular meaning to you at the time?
No.
And would you agree with this appears to be a picture that he sent via LinkedIn message?
Yes.
And if you click on the picture, does it kind of get bigger?
Yes.
I'm going to flip us over to the second page, which is the clicked on bigger version of this. When you received this, what did you focus on?
The words at the bottom.
What did the words at the bottom say?
You can't escape me.
How did that make you feel, Mr. Goshen?
Really scared. Really scared.
Why?
Because yeah, I just did not feel safe. I didn't feel safe in work. I didn't feel safe at my house because I knew he knew where I lived. And that was a scary feeling of not knowing.
When's the next time you recall interacting with Mr. Dwyer?
At the golf tournament.
Is this the same golf tournament Ms. Rhodes testified to that was in March of 2023?
Yes.
How did you learn that Mr. Dwyer was there?
I got a call from my boss.
And did you all game plan how to respond and deal with it?
Yeah,
Were you there just to enjoy the golf game?
I was there with clients similar to Natalie.
So it was kind of a business development outing in a professional sense.
Yes.
When you were at the golf tournament, did you interact with Mr. Dwyer?
Yes.
Lead me up to how that occurred.
When I got there with my client, I knew he was there. So similar to what Natalie said, tried to keep distance because of potentially an uncomfortable situation for our client, which I did not want. So we relatively dodged each other throughout the whole outing. And then at the end, as my client and I were leaving, it was a situation where I needed to, walking out with my client, I felt like I couldn't not acknowledge him, and I was a little fearful it would have escalated if I didn't. And so I decided to go up to him, give him a fist pump, say, "Hey, how are you doing?" and then walk away.
So you were concerned about how the interaction would go, but it actually was okay.
Yes.
Approximately when was the next time you heard from or saw Mr. Dwyer?
At my house about a month ago.
Set the stage for me. What day of the week was it?
It was a Sunday night,
Approximately what time at night?
around 9:30.
What were you doing?
I was on my couch watching football.
Anybody else home?
Just my dog.
Were you expecting any visitors?
No.
Then what happened?
I heard banging on the door.
So what'd you do?
I got up and looked to see who it was. And I saw it was Devontae.
Did you have a ring or something so you could see him, or how'd you see it was Devontae?
No, I don't have Ring. I do now. But my door is glass, so I'm able to see outside without opening it.
Did you speak to him?
Yes.
What'd you say?
So what the fuck are you doing here?
Did he respond to you?
Yes.
What'd he say?
What the hell did you just say to me?
And how did you respond to that?
I said, leave now or I'm going to call the cops.
Did he seem to run away immediately?
Yeah, he walked away.
At that point that he walked away, had you already pulled out your phone?
Yes.
Were you able to observe where he went?
Yes.
Where'd he go?
There's a truck.
Was it parked on the street?
Yes.
Did he immediately start it up and drive away?
No.
Approximately how long would you estimate he was there sitting in there?
Anywhere between 3 to 5 minutes,
How long did that feel to you?
like forever.
Did you eventually call the police?
Yes.
Did you file a police report?
Yes.
How has him showing up your house uninvited impacted you?
A lot.
Has it interfered with your sleep?
Yes.
Have you felt less safe at home?
Completely.
Have you had nightmares?
Yes.
Is it also impacting your wife?
Yes.
In the same way it seems to be impacting you?
Maybe more.
Did you tell folks at Insight Global about this incident?
Yes.
To your knowledge, what happened next, or what did Insight Global do?
Got on a call the next morning at 7:30 with my colleague, and then also our VP of legal. Decide next steps, and then Insight Global immediately got me personal security for the next 2.5 weeks at my home. Also purchased a Ring doorbell for me.
Obviously, Mr. Dwyer is here.
Yep.
I want to afford you the same thing I afforded Ms. Rhodes, which was you have an opportunity to communicate to him what you desire and don't want, and how this is making you feel. If you'd like to say anything, please take this opportunity to do so.
I feel really bad for you. I'm really sorry that you're going through this, but it's not the guy I knew. And I just ask you to really stop, because what you're doing is affecting not just me, but it's affecting my family. It's affecting my friends, my colleagues, my team, our company, and it's not okay. And so I pray that everything is okay with you, and I hope that you get better.
Thank you, Mr. Bogosian. Your Honor, I pass the witness.
Any questions, Mr. Dwyer?
No.
All right. Mr. Slate?
Your Honor, I call our next witness, Greg Dowling. And where do you work?
Insight Global.
And what is your role with Insight Global?
President of Sales.
Would you mind giving the court a little bit of a sense of the scope of what Insight Global does in terms of its size?
Nationwide and international staffing and service provider.
Pretty big?
Very big.
Like we're talking billions big?
4 billion plus. Yes.
How long have you been in the role as president of the sales?
2.5 years.
And how long have you been with Insight Global overall?
I'll be 14 years in January.
And what role did you start at Insight Global?
Recruiter.
And that's the same role that Ms. Rhodes, Mr. Bogosian, and even Mr. Dwyer started at Insight
Yes.
Global?
Yes.
Are you based in Austin, Texas?
I am not.
Where are you based?
Atlanta, Georgia.
And part of your team is in Austin, Texas.
Yes.
They have an office in Austin.
Yes.
That's in Frost Bank Tower.
Yes.
And Insight Global leases that space, right?
They do. Yes.
I don't need to put it up on the screen, but I'll just note for the court that the Insight Global lease for the space in Frost Bank Tower has been pre-admitted as Exhibit F. Mr. Dowling, Insight Global lease permits it to occupy its space in the building, right?
Yes.
And it also allows it rights to common area space, such as the lobby, parking garage, things like that.
Yes.
And it pays for those rents.
It does. Yes.
And there's security in the building, right?
There is.
And currently, so talking about now, can anybody during business hours just get up to Insight Global space?
They cannot anymore.
What do they have to do if it's a visitor?
They have to sign in on the ground floor and be badged up to the Insight Global's floor.
And Insight Global employees, they have a badge themselves, or should?
Insight Global employees have their own badges to badge in and badge out.
And you said currently a moment ago, was this a change?
Yes.
Was prior to the change, were visitors allowed to go up during business hours to the Insight Global floor?
They were.
What caused the change?
The Devontae Dwyer incident.
After Mr. Bogosian informed folks at Insight Global that Mr. Dwyer had been to his house the night before, did somebody at Insight Global reach out to Mr. Dwyer to talk to him?
Yes.
Who was that?
That was me.
Would you please provide your recollection of that conversation with Mr. Dwyer?
Yes. I reached out to Devontae, let him know that he needed to stop. He needed to stop reaching out to employees, calling, texting, and then obviously showing up to people's houses. I let him know that this has caused a massive disruption. It's my job to protect our people, and I politely asked him to stop.
Did he seem to be upset at these developments?
Yeah, he was upset. He was frustrated, but we got to a place where he said, yes, I will stop. You will not hear from me again, were his exact words.
And after that conversation, Insight Global sent a follow-up letter to him, right?
Yes.
And that letter was attached to the petition as Exhibit C and has been pre-amended as Exhibit C, just for purposes of the record. Did you expect, based on that phone conversation, that he would keep his word and you wouldn't hear from him again?
I did. From the way the conversation ended and how he reacted, I believed we would not hear from him again.
Has Insight Global heard from him again?
Yes.
Has he shown up at the office to come in?
Yes.
Has Insight Global, as a result of Mr. Dwyer's actions, taken additional steps in terms of security?
Yes.
Like what?
We've added security to the main floor in the Austin building. We've added security to the floor that Insight Global office sits on. And we've added private security for several individuals in the office.
And you also authorize this legal action?
Yes. Yes.
And I'm not working for free?
You are not.
How did you feel after you learned that Mr. Dwyer returned to Insight Global's office after your conversation?
I was disappointed. I thought we had a very level-headed conversation, but then it translated into fear. Fear for my employees, fear for the individuals in the Austin office. And as president of our organization, first and foremost, I need to protect my employees, and that is number one to me always.
Your Honor, I pass the witness.
Any questions of this witness, Mr. Dwyer?
Yeah, just one. Greg, do you remember what exactly I told you over that conversation and why exactly I was attempting to contact Insight Global employees?
You just said you've been reaching out, and my understanding is you believed you were going to return to our company and work for us again. And
Yeah.
I, I disagreed with that.
Okay. In addition to that, do you remember the extension of our conversation? Because it was more than that.
I don't.
Okay. You have to explain myself. No more questions.
All right, thank you. Anything further?
Yes, Your Honor, we have one more witness from building security. He had to step away from the security desk and so should be joining us in just a moment. Ms. Webb reached out to him at the time that we started Mr. Dowling's testimony, which moved a little bit faster than I was anticipating it would as we planned this out because of the pre-admission of the exhibits.
All right.
So if you
Let's, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Let's just go, we'll take a break and we should be back, what, in about 10:25? You think your guy will be here by then?
I'm hoping he'll be here. Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Webb, please.
Yes, Your Honor. He just texted me and as is trying to log in now. So whatever you think is best.
Yeah, let's give the court reporter a little short break, then we'll come back at 10. It's 10:10 now. So let's come back at 10:25 and then we'll get started once again. Call your next witness, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. For our next and final witness as part of plaintiff's case in chief, we'll be calling Glenn Harmer. I did want to remind Your Honor, he was not on earlier and therefore has not yet been sworn in. So after he's sworn in, I'll be turning it over to Ms. Webb to conduct the examination.
All right.
Okay. And broadly, what does that entail?
For the most part, it entails managing the security team and providing safety and security for the tenants and the visitors of the building.
And about how long have you done that?
I've been at this site, it will be 12 years in February.
And was this your first job in this type of role?
In security, no. I've worked security for the Four Seasons Hotel, and I also do security work for the Moody Theater.
So let's talk a little bit about Frostbank Tower. Where is it located?
It's located downtown Austin at the corner of 4th and Congress Avenue.
And what is it?
It is a office building that is home to several different types of businesses. It also has a branch of the Frostbank, and there's a adjoining restaurant and coffee shop in the lobby as well.
Okay. And so let's paint a picture of the lobby for the court. So if someone enters the lobby, what's directly in front of them?
In about 30 feet, you'd come to the security desk, is where we're located. To the left, you have the entrance to the lobby of the bank where the tellers are located. To the right, in the far corner, is the Houndstooth Coffee Shop. And just inside, right before you enter the building, there is a Modern Market restaurant on the plaza area.
Okay. And so to get up to one of the office levels or one of the office floors, how would a visitor go about doing that?
If it is a secured floor, we're talking visitors, not tenants. If it's a secured floor and they would either come to the desk, let us know their name, and if we have information or any type of documentation that this person is allowed up, we would go ahead and give them access by our security access badge. If it's an unsecured floor, which some of them are, we don't control access to those floors. People are free to come and go as they please to those floors.
Okay. So secured floors are those that you cannot just freely access, correct?
Yes, unless you are an employee and have an access badge.
Okay. And so how do you know if a particular floor is a secure floor or not?
We have them in our system, in our elevator lobby system. It's indicated on our screen. A visitor wouldn't know that unless they were told prior to visiting that they would need to check in with us.
Okay. And so are you familiar with Insight Global?
Yes, I am.
How do you know Insight Global?
I just know them for being a tenant in the building.
And so is Insight Global, do they have a secured floor or unsecured floor?
The floor is secured now, yes.
Okay. Has it always been secured?
No, it was only secured after this incident arose with Devontae.
Okay. So let's shift gears and talk a little bit about Devontae. Are you familiar with the defendant here?
Yes, I know him just by being an employee in the building as well, previous employee in the building.
And so did Insight Global tell you anything about him?
I just know bits and pieces as it all started to unfold. Nothing specifically was given to me directive, just that there were some issues outside of work and they had some concerns, and I directed them to the property management to address those concerns.
So was Devontae allowed to go to the Inside Global floor?
Once we were told that he wasn't allowed to be on their floor, they went ahead and reached out to the other tenant on that floor. They agreed apparently with property management that they could secure that floor. And once we were given that information, we were told to not let him go up to that floor if should show up.
Okay. And were you all provided any type of information, like how were you able to identify the defendant?
I posted his ID badge that we had on file, his photo at the front, and then we also have a loading dock area that's secured in case there was any attempt to make that entrance that way. It was posted at the front security desk and in the back dock office.
And so approximately how long ago was your security team provided with the notice that he was not allowed to go up to that floor?
It was probably just been about 2 or 3 months now. I don't know the exact time, but it's been about 2 or 3 months, it seems.
Okay. And since that notice about 2 to 3 months ago, has the defendant attempted to go to Inside Global?
Yes, there was 3 attempts to go to Inside.
Do you recall the dates on those?
Yes, the first one was September 29th. The second one was October 2nd, and the third, October 5th.
Okay, so let's start with the first one on September 29th. Do you know about what time the defendant was at Frost Bank Tower?
I wasn't here. I had just left for the day on a Friday. I think it was a Friday, and got a call from my officer on duty around 5:30. I think he was between 4 and 5 when he was in the building.
Okay. And I know you stated that you weren't present, but do you know why he was there?
He stated that he had an appointment with somebody with Insight Global.
Okay. And was he successful at getting up to the floor?
He was successful to get up to the floor, but not into the suite.
Okay. Can you tell me what happened, how he was able to get to the floor?
Well, protocol is if we don't have any information that this person or anybody has an interview or is supposed to be on the floor, we're supposed to contact the list of tenant contacts. My officer attempted to make those calls. Nobody responded and did what she shouldn't have done and when it gave him access. Said she didn't recognize who he was and gave him access to that floor.
And was there a consequence for that guard who gave him access?
Yeah, she is no longer with the company.
So let's talk about the second time that the defendant attempted to get into Inside Global. And that was on October 2nd, correct?
Yes,
Okay. And did you personally interact with him on this time?
I did.
Okay. Can you tell me a little bit about that interaction?
He showed up at the front desk, security desk, and explained that he had an appointment with Insight Global. And being that I knew who he was, I said, Devontae, I don't have any information or any notification that you have an appointment. I said, and there's nobody in the office anyway today. And he asked me to reach out to Emily Dodson. And I reiterated that she and nobody else was in the office today. And I suggested, since this was your second time, that maybe you should clarify, and let them know that you're supposed to be on the property. And he was kind of surprised that I didn't have the information and turned around and left the property.
Okay. So he was denied access, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And so after he was denied access, he just turned around and left?
Yes.
Okay. And so the third time that he showed up was on October 5th, correct?
Yes,
Okay. And again, did you personally interact with him?
I did.
Okay. Can you tell me a little bit about this interaction?
It was pretty much the same as the one on the second. I reiterated again that this is the third time you've shown up and without an appointment. And he asked me to call up again, and I reiterated that nobody was in the office. He turned around and said, okay, I'm never coming back. And then he left the property.
Okay. And since then, have you seen him at Frost Bank Tower?
I have not.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Harmer. I pass the witness.
Any questions of Mr. Harmer, Mr. Dwyer?
No.
All right, thank you. Mr. Slade?
Your Honor, plaintiff's arrest, though, of course, we reserve the right to potentially cross-examination Mr. Dwyer should he testify or call any other witnesses.
Mr. Dwyer? I'll allow you to testify in the negative if there's something you want to say.
Yeah. Fortunately, I don't have any witnesses, nor could I afford a lawyer, so I'm kind of forced to represent myself. And the best thing I can say is a little backstory on my situation. I was fired from Inside Global for what I consider myself to be a very heinous personal mistake. Spent every waking hour after that mistake trying to figure out what happened and why. And a few months later, actually almost a year later, I ended up getting a PTSD and ADHD diagnosis. And what I did was I immediately started texting Inside Global, Zach Bogosian, primarily, and let him know what happened. And I was even getting a response. They didn't start blocking me until fall 2022. I'm going to sound like a psychopath when I say this. I know I clearly look like a psychopath with all these exhibits, but I cannot stress enough that I've never once been a threat. And a lot of pretty much everything that I've said has been taken out of context and misconstrued. Now, the best thing I can say is I was using them to help me navigate what to do next after my diagnosis, considering my departure. Now, I do understand I did receive a cease and desist. And if you want to be honest, I thought it's because the legal department had no idea what I was doing. And it still seems to be the case. This whole time, I thought I was repairing my relationships with them with routine texts. That's why there's so many. Whilst essentially thinking the cease and desists were a mistake because of the avenues that I had messaged them last year. That is obviously not the case. Every exhibit, everything I did was what I consider a miscommunication. I thought I was doing something good. I know that makes no sense, but I really did. I told Greg Dowling that over the phone as well, how I was walking through my PTSD diagnosis, my therapy, and my ADHD, which is a big cause why I even showed up at Zach Bogosian's house in the first place. I don't know if you guys know how that is for mental health, but that's what happens. So the best thing I can say is I am sorry my messages came across this way. I'm sorry things I've said have been misconstrued. I'm sorry things I've said have been taken out of context. And I truly have nothing else to say after that. Nothing I say can defend the tangible exhibits that you guys have, besides I promise you I'm not a psychopath and this is miscommunication, and this has been made very clear to me today.
All right, Mr. Slade, any questions?
I have a few, Your Honor.
Okay.
Mr. Dwyer, you'd agree that after sending all of these messages that you're now suggesting are kind of an outreach to explain something, none of Ms. Rhodes or Mr. Bogosian or other folks actually responded to you?
No, they didn't, but they did unblock me every 48 hours, assuming I assumed that they wanted me to message them. So for the message to go through, they have to unblock me in the first place. At least that's what looking at my phone. So,
Your Honor, I'd like to share what had been identified and introduced as Exhibit J. Mr. Dwyer, this is a text exchange you have with another Insight Global employee, is it not?
yeah,
This was after you received the first cease and desist letter back in October of 2022, correct?
yeah, it triggered me.
And you said, I will ruin that fucking company, Ryan. Did you not?
Yes, I did.
And you said they were threatening the wrong motherfucker?
Yes, I did.
And you indicated that's the type of stuff that leads to PTSD?
So, I don't know if you
It's a yes or no question, Mr. Dwyer.
Yes. Yes.
Do you understand how your continued outreach, despite knowing you've been blocked, has reasonably caused Ms. Rhodes and Mr. Bogosian to believe they were potentially in harm's way?
Not at any point did I ever think they actually thought they were in harm's way. That is the truth.
Do you understand how they could feel that way based on your actions?
Yes. Yes. Now that we're in this situation, yes, that's it.
Do you think it's reasonable that they should feel that way in light of everything we've shown the court here today?
In light of everything the court has shown here today, yes.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Dwyer, anything else?
For them to receive the message in the first place, they would have to unblock me. And through that, I would assume, as routine as it was, how could I not assume they did not want me to message them? I was also under the impression that my messages were going through and they could actually read the content of the messages. Apparently I was wrong. I was wrong. Oh, that's it.
All right. Mr. Slate?
Your Honor, brief moment to sort of sum up and close.
Sure.
Mr. Dwyer just admitted he was wrong. He has been wrong. He's been wrong this entire time. For the court to enter the temporary injunction that's been requested, a copy of which was provided by email last night to Chambers and to Mr. Dwyer, we must establish 3 elements: cause of action against the defendant, a probable right to the relief sought, and prominent, imminent, irreparable injury in the interim. Your Honor, we've advanced 4 causes of action. Let's start with stalking. The elements of stalking are that on one or more occasion, the defendant engaged in harassing behavior. I think we can check that box with the outreaches, the roses, the knocking on the doors, the unwanted LinkedIn messages. As a result of the harassing behavior, the claimant reasonably feared for the claimant's safety or the safety of a member of the claimant's family. Your Honor can assess the credibility of Ms. Rhodes and Mr. Bosan. Both were very transparent and credible. Both indicated, and even Mr. Dwyer admitted, it's reasonable for them to have those concerns. And then the third element is a potential multi-part test. Either the defendant violated a restraining order prohibiting the harassing behavior, which here we have because he continued to attempt to communicate with Ms. Rhodes, and in fact thought he was communicating with Ms. Rhodes after the court had entered the temporary restraining order. In addition, or independent of that, the defendant, while engaged in harassing behavior by acts or words, threatened to inflict bodily injury on the claimant or to commit an offense against the claimant, a member of the claimant's family or the claimant's property.
Objection. I never did that. I never did that. You're taking everything I said out of context. When I
Mr.
just
Dwyer,
said,
Mr. Dwyer, this is
Sorry.
his closing argument. He gets to
No.
argue what he wants, and whether or not you did that is really not up to you anymore, given the evidence in front of the court. Yes, sir.
Your Honor, I'm sorry, Your Honor. May I continue, please?
You may.
We just looked at the text message where he said he would ruin that fucking company. We also saw earlier the messages to Mr. Bosan, you can't escape me. And to Miss Rhodes, you're definitely stuck with me for the rest of your fucking life. The next element is whether the defendant had the apparent ability to carry out that threat. We've already established that he lives in the area. He has size. And there's been no objection to the fact that he could show up, say, at Insight Global's office, because he's done that multiple times just after the second cease and desist letter. The next element is the claimant at least once clearly demanded that the defendant stop the defendant's harassing behavior. We have 2 cease and desist letters. We have 1 verified petition, and we have 1 temporary restraining order, none of which has stopped Mr. Dwyer. And after the demand to stop by the claimant, the defendant continued the harassing behavior. And then finally, the harassing behavior has been reported to the police as a stalking offense. Of course, Mr. Bosan and Ms. Rhodes both indicated they had submitted information to the police. Another cause of action is for intentional infliction of emotional distress. Did Mr. Dwyer act intentionally and outrageously? We've seen the texting and communications. He admits he's been trying to do it and reach out to them. Was the conduct, in fact, extreme and outrageous? Would an average person, reasonable person, believe that what he is doing is outrageous? Despite no response for over a year, to send messages almost every other day and send roses and show up at someone's house banging on the door out of the clear blue uninvited. It's clear that the conduct caused the emotional distress and that their emotional distress has been severe, as you can judge from their testimony. Trespass is the entry onto the property of another without the property owner's consent or authorization. Insight Global
Property are we talking about Bosan's or Frost Bank?
Insight Global's rights at Frost Bank Tower and Mr. Bosan's both have asserted the claims.
I'm sorry, that's more specific. Yes, I understand.
For Insight Global, they have a right to the shared space. He has, in fact, come up to their floor that they have a right to, uninvited and against their wishes, as reflected by the cease and desist letter. Mr. Bogosian, of course, has a right to his property, and we know that Mr. Dwyer came up onto that property when he knocked. Trespass does not require, Your Honor, the intrusion into the physical doored-off space. It's the property, which can extend beyond what's inside versus what's property that is outside. And then the final cause of action is the invasion of privacy by intrusion, which is the intentional intrusion upon a person's solitude, seclusion, or private affairs, where there was an expectation of privacy and or a physical invasion.
Mr. Slade, I don't know, hold on just a second. Ms. Hayes, did that freeze for you or is that just me? Did Mr. Slade's speech for just a half second? No? Okay.
I'm happy to repeat. Okay.
Why don't you do that? Because it froze for just a second for me, and I don't know if that was me or anybody else. So
I don't know where
just do that.
The final cause of action, and again, you don't need to find each of these to justify the order entry. It's any. The invasion of privacy by intrusion, that's the intentional intrusion upon a person's solitude, seclusion, or private affairs or concerns, where there was an expectation of privacy. We're not talking about an isolated, unwanted text message that was blocked. We're talking about repeated efforts to invade the privacy by going to different channels, following on Instagram, going to LinkedIn, despite all of this, despite multiple cease and desist letters. That meets the standard. And just to address it, because the question of damages may come up, these causes of actions, many provide for nominal damages to be known. In addition to that, proven at trial for a jury, there'll be the impact of the emotional damages suffered by Mr. Bogosian and Ms. Rhodes. And of course, Insight Global will be able to advance the damages of the expenses that they have had to incur as a result of Mr. Dwyer's actions, including but not limited to hiring counsel, increasing security, and taking other steps. So, Your Honor, with that, given Mr. Dwyer,
I'm not trying to be rude, but sometimes that sounds innocuous. So you want to tell me what the billing rate is for you?
Certainly, Your Honor. My standard hourly rate is $1,010. It is on, I don't believe that is what is being billed here and now. And of course, it would be under the court's discretion to determine what the reasonable attorney.
Yeah, I just wanted to figure what ballpark we were in. I thought we might be in that ballpark, but I needed, because okay, you need to finish up, and I'll tell you why I'm asking that question. Go ahead.
And so, Your Honor, our point is, for purposes of proving the probable right to relief sought to secure the temporary injunction, we believe we've met that by moving it over the line. We don't have to prove the ultimate amount of damages or costs to be there, but we've identified what those amounts are for purposes of establishing the temporary injunction should enter. And as much as I appreciate and want to believe Mr. Dwyer, that he really finally gets it, that he really isn't going to show up or contact anyone anymore. That's what Mr. Dowling thought after they spoke. That's what Insight Global thought when they sent the first cease and desist. And unfortunately, we haven't seen that back up. And so Insight Global, Ms. Rhodes, and Mr. Bogosian need this temporary injunction to enter to provide that additional relief and security so that we can come back to court should he prove again to not be reliable in that respect. Thank you, Your Honor.
Mr. Dwyer, you get to say something, and then Mr. Slade's case, so he gets to end. But is there anything else you need to say? Because I need to chat with both of you.
Yeah, Your Honor, I swear to God, on everything that is holy, I've never been a threat, nor actually intended to harm anyone. Again, you have to unblock me to receive a message, and none of the content of my messages has been discussed today. For whatever reason, I don't know. I'm not going to discuss it, but it's varied from anything from a funny joke to an actual damn near personal letter on my journey through ADHD and PTSD. And I look like even more of a psychopath thinking me and Miss Rhodes were in a relationship. And if I were to sit here and try to explain that thought process, it would hold no weight in court because it doesn't matter.
Okay.
The best thing I can say is I'm sorry. Everything I've done has been misconstrued and taken out of context. I know those messages, excuse my language, but they were reactive to who I thought was a friend at the time. And again, I am reliable and I will stop because this has made it very clear to me. I'm sorry.
Mr. Slade,
Your Honor, I can say plaintiffs hope that's true. They've had a lot of hope. That hope has been trounced upon to date. Thus, it is still appropriate and there remains an imminent irreparable harm or threat of harm sufficient to justify a temporary injunction in this action.
Yeah.
Thank you.
yeah, you're going to get granted that. That's going to be granted as of now. The next thing we do here is what I think is critical to getting this case put to bed, so to speak. I asked you what you made an hour, or what you build, not made, which is more precise. What you build an hour, because I needed, people don't often understand what that starts to mount up to, and God knows what it is now. And it doesn't matter who's paying, it's a lot of money. And Ms. Webb ain't cheap either. So the bottom line is this starts growing up in a lot of different ways. My suggestion is, I mean, I don't have any questions about it. I don't know how much different the testimony is going to get between now and what we would do in what would be a trial 60 days from now or less. And Mr. Dwyer, I need you to hear me when I say this. And I don't know. I'm asking because I think maybe mediation might work if we get a solid thing, but I don't know at this point. It may be too far past that. And that's what I'm asking now. Maybe there's a solid, because the trial doesn't change any of this evidence at all. And so I don't know where we are with that. And I don't say that lightly. We don't even have required mediation for my court. You go if you need to go, or if the judge thinks you need to go. I don't know where you are. And it could be a Rule 11 agreement. It could be an agreed judgment that comes with a whole lot of, but it's going to be a lot less now than it is then. And that's what I'd ask you guys to consider. I am not ordering you to mediation. Let me be clear. I'm asking both Mr. Dwyer and Mr. Slade to have a conversation if that's what you want to do. Otherwise, you're picking a date, we're going to trial, and that's a bunch. But it doesn't seem to change much of the facts I've already heard, and I'm not sure it would change much. It would only be more. All right, that's a request. You guys can figure it out from there. What you came here today was to get the motion. The motion is granted. And you have now, I think, somewhere between now and 60 days to figure out where we're going to trial or whether you can settle. Okay?
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you all. Appreciate your time. Today's hearing.
Your Honor, Jared Slade of Alston and Bird, appearing on behalf of Movement Plaintiffs Insight Global, Zachary Bogosian, and Natalie Rhodes.
Mr. Dwyer, you're here representing yourself again?
Yes, sir. Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Slade.
Your Honor, we had hoped it would stop. We were here before you about a week and a couple days ago for a lengthy evidentiary hearing, after which Your Honor issued an order granting application for temporary injunction.
Yes.
That
Go ahead.
injunction, thank you, Your Honor. That injunction very clearly prohibited Mr. Dwyer from contacting or attempting to communicate with plaintiff Zachary Bogosian, plaintiff Natalie Rhodes, or any other Insight Global employee. Sadly, we are back because he can't stop. We have attached in the form of verified records from Ms. Rhodes and Mr. Bogosian indications that he has continued to text them.
Yeah.
Plaintiffs are a bit at a loss and are asking for additional relief from this court, which has been laid out in our motion for holding Mr. Dwyer in criminal contempt or in the alternative civil contempt. We had thought it had been very plain as a result of the week before last's hearing, that he should not attempt to contact anyone affiliated with Insight Global, including, of course, Mr. Bogosian and Ms. Rhodes. And apparently the threat of civil liability and the court's admonitions have been insufficient to get that message through, given the gravity of the situation and his continued terrifying of plaintiffs. Plaintiffs are at a loss and have asked this court for the relief of criminal contempt or in the alternative civil contempt.
What's the criminal contempt that's requested?
Ideally, jail time, Your Honor.
All right. What's the civil contempt that's requested?
A requirement that Mr. Dwyer, in observation of the court, delete the contact information he has for Ms. Rhodes, Mr. Bogosian and any other Insight Global employee wherever found, such as cell phones, social media, etc., in addition to paying a fine equivalent to the cost to bring this motion.
What, okay. What, and what's the criminal you're asking for? How much time in jail are you asking for?
Your Honor, we did not propose a specific amount of time because we felt that that was within the absolute discretion of the court to address the circumstance. And we did not identify a sort of a good range of this type of situation as to what it would be. The criminal contempt request is because we're apparently not getting through Mr. Dwyer about the severity of the situation, and feel like we're resorting to a spot that that's the only escalation we can still sort of contemplate here. And further, that we understand that were he incarcerated for any period of time, that would be a period of time that he could not continue to contact or attempt to communicate with plaintiffs and continue scaring.
Mr. Dwyer?
Your Honor, I have stopped. As of a few days ago, I have stopped. I have no problem.
Here's my question. Have you contacted anybody on the list since the time I issued the order? Yes or no? Remember, you're under oath.
Yes, Your Honor. I sent one. And
Okay.
all I have to say is, I swear to God, I swear to God, I'm done. Please do not send me to jail. I am done. I will delete the.
I'm going to be. Yeah. That you did. So you've admitted that. That's part of the record now. So let me be clear about this. You can get this shot. I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to tell you that you need to delete all their information and all of them. You need to know way to contact them. That means any way possible you think you can contact them has to be deleted. Whatever that is, whatever Facebook, anything like Facebook, not just Facebook, but anything like Facebook. What is that? Instagram, anything that's like those things, sorts of things, you're not allowed to contact them. You have to follow that thing to the order. But I'm gonna tell you this time, the likelihood you go to jail the next time this happens, pretty good.
Yes, sir.
This happens again, there's no asking to get out of it. There's no thing that you don't get. I've been on the bench for 16 years. I've done this exactly one time because most people get it. But rest assured, I'm putting it on the record so that I will remember that, yeah, if you can't seem to get it straight, jail time is what it's going to take.
Yes, Your Honor.
Last I checked, those weren't friendly people. So you need to understand that. You need to not do this. The cost, what was the cost of this, Mr. Slade?
Your Honor, we had not put it together, but an amount of $2,500 would be sufficient.
Yeah, it's 5,000. That's a penalty. I'm doubling that number because money doesn't seem to do it, but I tried to get you to understand what this was costing. So here it is. It's $5,000. It's a fine. That's a contempt fine. The next time, though, since money doesn't seem to be an object for you or doesn't seem to stop you, the likelihood that I don't put you in jail is slim and none. You understand?
Yes, sir.
The reason it's on there are lots of witnesses here. My staff will remind me of what I said. So will the record. So the likelihood that you're not going to jail if this happens again, let me repeat, slim and none.
Oh.
And I'm sure Mr. Slade will remind me. So here we go. Mr. Slade, it's $5,000.
Yes, Your Honor.
That's the contempt charge. Mr. Dwyer is $5,000. That's the contempt charge. I'm going to think long and hard about how long it would be if you decide to do this again. I'll check with the people about what that looks like. But I don't think you want to be there for any length of time, and it's not going to be in and out. So the contempt is granted. The fine is $5,000. Anything else?
Your Honor, would you like a proposed order to be submitted on this, or is it fine just on the record?
No,
that we
I
made
want you
here?
to write an order if you could. Appreciate it, because
Of course, Your Honor.
that just makes it clear. Send it to him when you get it back. When we get it, we'll sign it. All right?
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.